Hours after I gave birth alone, my mom messaged, "Your sister's kids are expecting new phones for their birthday. Send $2,000. I didn't respond. A week later, I came home and my mom walked in and shouted, "How could you?" I got really angry and my husband was holding my hand when the contractions started. And then his phone rang. His father had collapsed at a job site in Tucson and just like that, Derek was gone. 37 weeks pregnant, standing in our kitchen in Columbus, Ohio, watching his tail lights disappear down the street at 11 o'clock at night. He kept saying, "I'll be back before the baby comes. Jolene, I promise." But here's the thing about promises and babies. Neither one cares about your schedule. And you know who else didn't care? My mother. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Let me back up. My name is Jolene. I'm 26 and I grew up in a family where I was basically the ATM with a heartbeat. I have an older sister, Brenda, who's 31 and has 3 kids. And somehow, every single financial emergency in Brenda's life became my problem. New school shoes? Call Jolene. Car payments late? Jolene will cover it. And standing behind every single one of those requests like a general commanding her troops was my mother, Diane. Now, don't get me wrong. I love my mother. Or at least I love the idea of what a mother should be. But Diane had decided a long time ago that Brenda was the golden child. And I was the workhorse. Brenda got pregnant at 19, dropped out of community college, and my mom treated her like she'd won a Nobel Prize. I put myself through school, got a decent job at an insurance firm, married a good man, and somehow I was still the one who needed to do more for this family. You ever have someone in your life like that? Someone who just drains you and then blames you for being empty. So Derek left for Tucson on a Tuesday night. His dad, Earl, had a heart episode on a construction site. I told Derek to go. Of course, I told him to go. What kind of wife would I be? Earl needed him. But I'd be lying if I said I wasn't terrified. First baby alone in a house that suddenly felt way too big and way too quiet. Wednesday passed, Thursday passed. Derek called every few hours. Earl was in the ICU stable but not great. Derek sounded wrecked. I told him everything was fine. Everything was not fine. My back was killing me. I couldn't sleep and I was eating cereal for every meal because standing long enough to cook felt like running a marathon. Then Friday morning hit 5:15 a.m. My water broke in bed and I just lay there for a second staring at the ceiling thinking, of course this is happening right now. I called Derek first. He didn't pick up. Time difference, hospital exhaustion, I don't know. I called him 3 more times, nothing. So I did what I had to do. I called my neighbor Patty, this wonderful 60-year-old woman who brought me banana bread when we moved in. Patty drove me to Riverside Methodist in her bathrobe and slippers. Bless her heart, doing 45 and a 35 while telling me to breathe. Now, here's where I need to tell you about one more person. My grandmother, my dad's mom, Nana Ruth, 81 years old, lives in Dayton, sharp as a tack, and the only person in my family who ever made me feel like I was enough. When my dad passed away 6 years ago, Nana Ruth became my anchor. She couldn't drive to Columbus anymore, but she called me every single Sunday without fail. She knew about Derek leaving for Tucson. She knew I was nervous. And at 6:30 that Friday morning, while I was being wheeled into labor and delivery, my phone buzzed with a text from Nana Ruth. "I've been praying since 5. You've got this baby girl." I cried right there in the wheelchair. I just cried. Labor was 14 hours. 14 hours, you guys. No epidural for the first 9 because by the time I wanted one, things were moving too fast. I'm not going to sugarcoat it. It was the hardest thing I've ever done in my life. Patty stayed in the waiting room for 7 of those hours until I told a nurse to send her home. And Derek finally called back round our 6. He was sobbing. He felt horrible. His dad was being moved out of the ICU and he was trying to get a flight back, but everything was booked or had crazy layovers. I told him it was okay. I told him I was strong. And honestly, in that moment, pushing through contraction after contraction with nobody holding my hand, I realized I actually was strong. Stronger than I ever gave myself credit for. At 7:48 p.m. on that Friday, my daughter was born. 7 pounds 3 ounces with Derek's dark hair and my stubborn chin. I named her Lily because when I was little, Nana Ruth had a garden full of lies and she used to tell me they were the toughest flowers. They come back every single year, no matter what. I held Lily against my chest and I felt like the whole world could burn down round me and it wouldn't matter. I had her. She was here. We made it. Derek saw Lily for the first time over video call. He was sitting in a hospital hallway in Tucson crying so hard he could barely talk. He kept saying, "She's perfect. You're perfect. I'm so sorry." And I believed him. That man loved us. He was just torn between 2 emergencies and I couldn't fault him for that. Now, here's where the story turns. Are you ready? Because I wasn't. 3 hours after I gave birth, 3 hours. I'm lying in my hospital bed, Lily asleep on my chest, my body feeling like it got hit by a bus, and my phone lights up. It's a text from my mother, from Diane. Do you want to know what it said? Because when I tell you, you're going to react the same way I did. It said, Brenda's kids are expecting new phones for their birthday next month. Can you send $2,000? They've been talking about it all week. That's it. That was the message. No. How are you? No. Did the baby come? No. Are you okay? $2,000 for phones for my sister's kids. 3 hours after I gave birth alone, I stared at that message for a long time. And you know what I did? Absolutely nothing. I didn't respond. I turned my phone over. I kissed the top of Lily's head and I closed my eyes. Can you believe that? Honestly, tell me, what would you have done? But that silence, that was the match that lit the fuse. Because my mother is not a woman who handles being ignored well. And what she did when I came home from the hospital a week later, that's when everything really exploded. My mother showed up at my door. No warning, no call. She just walked in. She still had a spare key from when we first moved in, which, yes, I know, I should have changed those locks ages ago. I was sitting on the couch, Lily in my arms, still in that foggy haze of no sleep and new motherhood. And Diane walked through my front door, stood in my living room, and the very first words out of her mouth were, How could you? How could you ignore your own family when they needed you? Not, let me see my granddaughter. Not, how was the birth? How could you? Something inside me just snapped. I'm not proud of what happened next, but maybe I am. I honestly still don't know, but I'm going to tell you exactly what I did because I promised myself I'd be honest in sharing this story. I put Lily down gently in her bassinet. I stood up. My legs were shaking. Whether from exhaustion or anger, I still couldn't tell you. And I walked right up to my mother, looked her dead in the eyes, and I slapped her across the face. I know. Before you judge me, just hear me out. 26 years. 26 years of being second place, of being the reliable one, the quiet one, the one who writes the checks and never gets a thank you. 26 years of watching Brenda get praised for doing the bare minimum while I worked myself to the bone. And this woman couldn't even acknowledge that her younger daughter just brought a life into this world alone. The slap wasn't hard. It wasn't violent, but it was loud. And the look on my mother's face, I will never forget it as long as I live. She just stood there, her hand on her cheek, mouth open like the universe had glitched. And then she said, You hit me. You actually hit me. And I said, And you actually forgot I exist. So I guess we're both surprised. Do you think I was wrong for that? Because some days, I think I was. And some days, I think it was 26 years overdue. You tell me Diane left. She didn't slam the door. She just walked out like a ghost. And I stood there shaking, holding onto the kitchen counter, and I called the only person I wanted to talk to, Nana Ruth. Nana Ruth picked up on the first ring like she always does. And I told her everything, the text, the slap, all of it. And you know what Nana Ruth said? She was quiet for a second and then she said, Well, Jolene, I don't condone hitting. But I've been waiting for you to stand up for yourself for about 15 years. So, I'm not going to sit here and pretend I'm shocked. That woman, I swear. She's the only reason I didn't completely fall apart. But here's what I didn't expect.